and what makes a six-star leader, what makes a six-star person, what makes a six-star business. I'd say bravery for me is absolutely that in whatever guise it comes in. And, I think I am always in admiration of people that have been brave.
Hello, and you're with Aveline Clark on the Six Star Business Podcast, where we have conversations about what it takes to be six-star as a six-star leader in a six-star business in a six-star world. And in this episode, we sat down with Steve Jefferys from the UK, a former professional marketer turned executive personal coach. What I really like about Steve is that he's not trying to be a guru. He's not professing to have all the answers and to be the only one. What's really inspirational about Steve is the way that he followed the signs in his own life and took action when he could, balancing out the priorities he had, knowing where his heart lay, and actually tapped into his genius to come up with a model of a work-life balance and a business structure to actually serve other people. He's a dad, he's a coach, he coaches kids' sports. He just loves getting the most out of people. He loves working with anybody who needs to make a shift but just doesn't know where or how to do it. I loved talking with him. It created in me a spark of excitement and motivation to ensure that I'm not missing, the signposts of a shift that I might need to make. And it's something we can all learn from, and he's just a lovely person. So I invite you to sit back and enjoy this conversation with Steve Jefferys. Welcome, here we are for another conversation on the Six Star Business Podcast. Thank you for joining me. Corey, how are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me back, and good morning to you, Steve. Happy to see you on our podcast.
Good morning to you both too. Thank you for having me. It's a very hot day in the UK, so getting it done early is the best thing.
Good to hear. Well, yeah, it's great to have you on, Steve, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know you better. So let's kick this off, shall we, with some questions that, firing at you, of course. Could you tell us, where are you in the world? I can hear you're in the UK. Just let us know where you are. And who do you serve? How do you serve them? And maybe something you like to do when you're not busy serving people.
Sure. Okay. Right. I'll start at the top. So I'm in the southwest of the UK, in a lovely country village near Bristol, which is really nice. Not from here originally. Moved down here 6 or so years ago from the big smoke of London, when it was still pre-COVID and still a little bit more affordable to do. So I feel like I'm a bit ahead of the curve on that one. And who do I serve? Quite a broad question, that one. So I serve people and businesses, or people within businesses, who want to make a shift, who want to make a change. And I think in thinking about this a bit more, probably the best way I'd term it is people that have a ceiling that they need to break through. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So I think from the experience I've had and how I've gone through my life, both corporate life, business life, personal life, is I've break through a number of different ceilings in that time, and they've not been easy to do. And I've got an innate sense that everyone in the world, whoever they are, has got some kind of ceiling that they can break through. And, I'm ever the optimist. And I think, if I look back through my life, I think of people I've got to know, friends of mine, I've always see the absolute best in everyone, for better or worse, really. And I think, I want to make people the best they can be, or I want to support people to be the best they can be. And I don't think I realized I'd had that within me until fairly recently, to be honest with you. But I want to serve other people who are a bit like that and a bit like me, people who've got energy, people who've got ambition, people that want to better themselves in as many and as varied ways as they can. And yeah, I think that's probably the neatest answer I can give at this stage without going into too much detail. In terms of how I serve them, so I am, as you know, I'm a coach, and I founded my practice a few months ago now, and I'm just in the process of building that up. Very exciting, very new, very shiny. Lots of mistakes being made, lots of lessons being learned, all of that kind of stuff. The way in which I serve people is I give them the time and the space and the environment to help them to navigate some of the things that they want to do. Ideal people for me would be clients who are, not limited by, industry vertical or demographic or anything like that. People that have got, you can see in their eyes, whether it's face to face or via a screen, you can see they've got something behind their eyes which is very much ambition driven or passion or something in there that wants to get out. And that can be something they want to change, something they want to get better at, something they want to break through and achieve, whatever it is. It's those kinds of things fire me up. Those kinds of things get me out of bed in the morning. And I really want to help to develop people like that. I think what I've tried to do in founding my coaching practice has been do it in a pragmatic, sincere way, in a way that's right for me. And I'll come on in a short while to talk about kind of lessons from my corporate life, as it were. But I am determined to make sure that in the way that I coach, in the way that I run my business, it's straightforward. It's relatively buzzword free. I say relatively. I grew up in marketing where I buzzworded with the best of them and probably still do most of the time. And it's hard to get away from that. But I do think that there's a refreshing need just to keep language simple, to keep things simple, to provide tools and environments which are accessible to as many people as possible. So that's what I want my practice to be. And also what I'm determined to foster is an approach where however I serve people, it's got practical action at its heart. So the conversation is only as good as the results you're going to get off the back of it. And that's not me promising that I'm going to get anyone to some kind of holy grail. I'm not an alchemist. I can't just change things overnight, but I can be the facilitator, if you like, to do that. I talk quite a lot when I'm talking with clients, be they in businesses or individuals, about what are people's ideal from to. So where are you currently and where do you want to get to? So I always start any arrangement or conversation with anyone with that in mind. Encourage my client or whoever to have a blank piece of paper in front of them and just to fire away some thoughts. Right, where are you currently? And by the end of it, kind of curate it into a right, where are you now, where are you going to, what's your from to? That could change. Hopefully it will change, but I think the important thing is you have a start point, something tangible to go from, where you can build from. So that's how I look to serve them. And I'm building that all the time. It's exciting. It's got good take up at the moment. I'm pleased to say it's going really, really well. And I'm open to how it can iterate and change over time as well, learning things from others, be they coaches, be they whoever, to be honest with you. I've got a very open mind to that. And then when I'm not doing coaching or serving people, I do a bit of coaching on the outside as well. So I do a lot of sports coaching for a change. And it's something I've got into quite recently, not because I wanted to continue the coaching theme. I've got two kids myself. They're 10 and 7, so they are kind of in that nice period when they're not too difficult, but they're not too teenagey, although the eldest one's getting there quite fast. And so I coach football, so soccer, football, rugby, and cricket as well. And I've kind of accumulated that portfolio almost by accident. I don't get paid for it. I just enjoy coaching children with it. I enjoy seeing them develop. I enjoy seeing them have fun and all of that. I don't think I'm going to add any more sports to that repertoire anytime soon, but it is a very enjoyable way just to escape from other stuff. So I do a lot of that. What I'm quite interested to do is start on a bit of a mentoring journey as well. And I say that in that, I spent 18 or so years in corporate life working in big advertising agencies, big marketing agencies. And although I left it, I feel like I've still got a lot to give back and advise. So I'm keen to, in a voluntary capacity, to mentor as many people as I can. So I'm just starting out on that journey and keen to help people to do that and see where that goes. So as well as, normal family admin, coaching sports and things like that, that's probably a fairly full roster of stuff.
You can say that again. Wow, I'm listening to that going, when does he have time to, ... That's amazing. My boys play soccer, and just knowing what their coach has to do for that one team, I'm thinking, and you do it for 3 teams? So that's impressive.
It is staggered, so my involvement with
Right.
them differs depending on things. But I also don't underestimate my capacity to fritter time away. I will, left to my own devices, I will do that. So I probably need the structure to stop myself descending into chaos.
You've got so much energy, Steve, and I can only imagine how that energy was channeled when you were in the corporate world. And you mentioned being in advertising or marketing agencies, and hearing you being so passionate about being a coach now. I've got a couple of questions. One is, when did you realize you wanted to be a coach? And second of all, can you tell us a bit about that journey through the corporate world that actually gave you these learning experiences that helped you to come to where you are today?
Yeah, of course. So when did I choose to become a coach? Fairly recently, I would say. And by recently, I mean in the last 4 years or so. I think I knew for quite a long time that I wanted to leave the industry. Like many people, I I I fell into it. I'm sure I can say that. I think lots of people do. Lots of people fall into industries. Leaving university, you go into something, you forge a path, and you go for it. And before you know it, 10 years have disappeared. And I don't think I was any different in that. What I would say is I absolutely loved what I did. So I wasn't itching to go from it. I enjoyed the cut and thrust of agency life. I enjoyed, I love nothing more than the adrenaline rush of new business. Love all of that. Love building relationships with clients. So I was very much a kind of an account man and leading from the front and all of that. So it used a lot of the things that I think are probably my strongest suits well. But I think what I realized, and I talk about it in 80-20 terms, but there's probably 20% of stuff that I was really good at and I could really max out on. There was 80% of stuff within the role that while I could do it, I was kind of spinning plates on each one, and you had to really, really invest a lot of energy in making each and every bit of that work. So I think what I realized over time, and especially the more senior I got and into leadership positions, was I wasn't, it's not as stark as saying I was living a lie. I absolutely wasn't doing that, but I knew there was something I was probably better placed doing that could make me be the best I could possibly be. And I was focusing quite a lot of stuff on things that probably other people were better placed to do. And I came to that realization. Certainly, I was at that point already by the time we moved out of London in 2016. But I thought, right, we'll leave London and we'll progress with the career I'm in because it's what I know. I think it gradually crept up on me. The pandemic brought it to a head, like I'm sure it has for lots and lots of people. But when it really hit me around coaching was when I went into a leadership position in one of the agencies I worked at. And I was changing very much from, managing a team to leading a large team of people across a diverse portfolio of clients. And I felt that I needed some extra tools in my toolkit to make me better. So I suggested, I knew of a very good coach who just come into the market who I wanted to try with. And as part of my kind of package going into the role, I said, I would really like this coaching to help me iron out some of the creases and help me discover some of the things I might not already know. And that was really illuminating doing that because having never had coaching before, I went into it with an entirely open mind. And I loved what I got out of it. I loved from a functional point of view, almost the indulgence of having that time just to talk to someone and work some stuff out. But secondly, I was quite amazed really by the level of realization I had, both of stuff I thought, yeah, do you know what? I'm really good at that and I'm proud of that. And that's me versus the other stuff I thought, oh no, that's definitely not me. I want to steer well clear of that. And quite frankly, I'm crap at that, and I quite like that polarity between the two and almost sieving it through to see what was what. And I learned some lessons from it. I took it into leadership positions and learned lots of lessons along the way. But that kernel of coaching stuck with me, and I thought, you know what, I think I could do this. But I kind of put it on the that's for another day shelf for some time. And then the pandemic came around. I was made redundant from my role, and there were perfectly valid business reasons for that. But I also thought, right, this is an opportunity to do something different. I've got a bit of time. So I did. And I thought through my plan for a year or so. Or I wasn't thinking about the plan for a year, but I was thinking about a year's worth of plan, if you know what I mean. And I thought, right, I'm going to retrain, and I did it. So I made that switch, that shift, call it what you will, and had a plan to do it, and that's what started me on my journey. And I think if I think back on some of the experience I've had and the roles I've had, I've worked at all of the big agency groups that there are, all the big network agencies and some independent agencies as well. So I've got a diverse portfolio of agency and client experience, and you learn something more from each and every one you go to. I almost feel like the layers of sediment build up as you go. And, from political lessons on how to deal with irate French people, as it goes with one of the agency groups I work with, to dealing with clients who have got some quite big problems on their hands, and actually realizing that dealing with agencies and what agencies provide is but a very small part of the job that they do. So I think there were lots and lots of different lessons that were learned. But I think what I realized was this is this is not new, me saying this, but it's a young person's game. And that's not me saying I'm old or past it, but you've got to have that energy you can give it, and you've got to give it full tilt for your team, for your agency, if you want to get ahead, for your clients, all of that. And what I realized, and this dovetailed with getting married and having a family myself, was I couldn't put all of that energy in all of those places. And it came to a head really when I realized that I was putting all that energy in all those places, but wasn't doing any of it particularly well. And my wife has so often clarified it beautifully for me when she said one day, do you know what, you come home from work, when coming home from work was still a thing, and 90% of you is gone, and the 10% of you that's left is quite frankly completely useless. So what's left for the rest of us? And that wasn't meant as a threat or anything like that, but it was quite a hit you between the eyes kind of statement to make you think, wow, yeah, I think you're right. And if I kind of stood back from myself and looked at myself, the body language signals were all there. I was on the sofa, I was kind of just jiggling on the remote. I didn't want to go and do bath time or anything like that with the kid. I just wanted to retreat. I'd get into the default position of scrolling through your phone, social media, all that. Can't get away from it, the time on a battle. And it just didn't feel very good. And I thought, wow, yeah, I think you're probably right. So it came to a head quite quickly by necessity. God bless the pandemic, and it had been brewing for some time. But I think the benefit of hindsight and retrospect makes me see that I think some of the fault lines, warning signals, call them what you will, were quite apparent for a number of years in the lead up to that. And happy to go into those anymore if you'd like me to.
I mean, life is very often fascinating in giving us sometimes the last final push needed to start something new, to break out of the comfort zone we're all in. Would you say that when you wouldn't have made redundant, that you probably, due to security, having family, a steady income, you would still linger around in the corporate world? Or was that a decision where values were drifting apart? You realized what they say, they don't mean it. I'm authentic. I really want to help. This is just business, and it's not all for me anymore. So, what went in your mind, and how did this making redundancy influenced your decision? Was it already a solid decision, or was that the final push you needed? And how did you cope with that security aspect as well, in particular after COVID? Because everybody nowadays has been terrified during, and it still goes on. And yeah.
Yeah, good question. And it's a good one to make me think, actually. Would I? And I think the answer which immediately came to mind, Corey, when you mentioned that was I would have absolutely still stuck out the corporate life because it was what I knew, and it was security. And I got a nice paycheck at the end of the month, and this, that, and the other. There's so many things you take for granted and don't really think about. And I think I had this, the other thing that I've always had is an innate determination that no matter what, I will succeed and I will do it. and I will break through to do it, and all of that. And sometimes I probably need that reality dose or that kind of sledgehammer that hits you to make you realize. And redundancy did hit me like a sledgehammer, because it hadn't happened to me before. And despite what anyone says, they say it is a business decision, and it absolutely is, but you can't help but take it personally. And it was hard, especially hard, I think, because, and I know there were lots of other people going through this at the time, we were all in this, or depending on where you were in the world, but certainly in the UK, we were just bunkered down in goodness knows how long of just staying at home for what seemed like forever. And you didn't really know what was happening at the end of the week, let alone in a month's time. So I think there was a lot of that kind of swirling around at the time, and it was hard. But I remembered after the decision was made for redundancy, and I had a period of time to service out, let's say, the existing job, a switch just flicked, and I thought, right, I'm going to do this job to the best of my ability, not to prove anyone wrong, but for my own self-respect, and also to set myself up and put myself in the best mindset, so that when I am out of this role, I come out of it not dragging my feet, not feeling sorry for myself or anything like that, but knowing that I did my job well, knowing that I've got some time and space to think things through properly now, and also knowing what value I add and what strengths I have. So it was quite a good kind of reframing stage, I guess, to give me that space just to almost take the pressure off of it and think, right, you're leaving this current job, that there's something else you want to think about. Don't make a snap decision on what that is yet, but give yourself the time and the space to do it. So, and that's what I did. So I was quite surprised by how clear that made me, because, and I guess, it probably was a trauma, to be honest with you. It was, it's hard to do, hard to go through, but I was able to almost accept it quite quickly. And as soon as I'd accepted it, I thought, right, okay, yeah, there was, no malice or no ill feeling or anything like that. I just thought, right, different course now. And it was quite liberating to have that. And I was quite methodical in how I went about it. I thought, okay, I've got a little bit of money behind me now. I don't have to jump into the next job. So I did lots and lots of research around types of places I'd want to go. And I did something I'd never done, and I made a plan for the following year. And I basically mapped it out. I'm a big fan of using my A3 pad for most things, to be honest with you. It's where I do my best thinking. And I literally drew out a year, and I thought, right, by this point, I'm going to have qualified. By this point, I'm going to have done that. Right, what do I need to do while I'm doing this? I need a steady job. So I found a maternity cover role for while I did that. And 2021 will be the year of the changeover, the chrysalis, call it what you will, how it's going to change. And I did that, and it worked pretty well. And we're now in 2022, which is the year of making up as you go along, and the year of let's see how it goes, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it so far.
Would you say that during this period you became more conscious about your strength and where you are not that good, and then you start planning it out and chaka going for, because it is in fact a trauma when you've been made redundant. I faced it 4 times myself. First time was horrible. The second was even more horrible. Was in Munich, but like you, I reminded myself what is now important in life. Yeah, that's not the end of the world. And I became more conscious about what I'm doing. And it also helped me to crystallize the goals and objectives I have in and want to pursue going forward. So, how did that influence your aspiration? Yeah, what you're doing now, coaching, helping people, and giving something back actually in one way.
Yeah, it really did. And I think it made me realize that there is, it's okay not to be so good at some stuff, and be quite open about that. You don't need to wear it like a badge saying I'm rubbish at that. Don't let me anywhere near that. But what you can do is say, okay, not really my bag. Someone else is better at that. Let's get them to do that, or ask them to do that. Whichever way you're looking at it. So I felt quite liberated. It was almost like a handbrake came off then. I didn't have to be good at everything, and I didn't have to be the the hero. I think again, my wife will tell you this, I've got a bit of a hero complex. I like to swoop in, I like to do stuff, and I don't have to do that, and I don't need to do it. And quite frankly, I'm not qualified to do that either. So God knows where that came from. But it gave me, I think in going through all that, it helped me to really understand what drove me and what motivated me. And that was to not necessarily to help people as such, but to guide people to be better than what they are. That's not because I've got special powers to do that, but I've just got a motivation and a desire to develop people and to get them better. I thought that about each and every member of my team when I had one. I thought each and every one of you has got capacity. I want each and every one of you to succeed. And I think one of the things I did when I was going through this changeover period, as it were, was I did I can't remember which one it was, but you do these, it's like either a strengths finder or a personality profile or something or other. But there was one phrase which came out of that, which really struck home, which was, people are your product. And that was the first thing it said. And I couldn't get past that. I thought, wow, that's quite, yeah, I guess they are. And I don't like to think of people as a product, but I am at my best when I am working with people, kicking things around with people, debating things, having just general conversation with them. It gives me energy. I love meeting new people, and it's what fires me up. And I thought, well, yeah, actually that's true. I don't have to be really good at all of these tangible things. It's often the more intangible things that are your strongest suits. And that was no different for me. And I think it was just that realization helped me, and it helped to galvanize everything that I was thinking, which was, right, I'm not going to call it my purpose was uncovered, but certainly the thing which made me tick, and the thing which, if I wake up every morning now and I think, does what I do now reflect what I am best at and what really motivates me? Absolutely it does. It's early stages, so it's building, but it's there. And having that level of clarity was quite key. And it comes from the oddest places, because it was just this innocuous thing that I filled out. It was a free thing online, and I went into it with a healthy dose of skepticism about what was going to come out. And I don't remember anything else apart from that one phrase, people are your product, which I've hinged onto ever since, and I think it rings true.
How would you grade your level of fulfillment, being fulfilled during your corporate time, and what do you feel today? And how has this impacted your family life? Has there been impact?
Oh, hugely. Yes, massive. I mean, now I do, and it's a conscious decision as well. I do most of the after school childcare. I do the washing, cleaning, things like that, because I've got the flexibility to do that. I fit it. You find pockets of time to do it, and I'm around for the kids all the time. Previously, if I was around, I'd be running back to get onto a conference call about something or other, or a video call rather. And now, I pick the kids up from school and we go up to the cricket nets and we have a game, or this has got very much a summer bias to it, of course, but you go and take the football out, or we'll go and, I don't know, go swimming, or whatever it might be. So now I get to do that. And actually, at the point where the kids are young, I think they need that. We don't have to stick them into holiday club, or not holiday club, sorry, after school clubs or anything like that, which they always hated anyway. So it works quite well from that very practical point of view. The impact that's had on me has been absolutely seismic, because find now that I use time so much better than I've ever used it before. One of the things I've learned on being a business owner is, having an empty diary is absolutely the enemy of everything, because if I face into the day with nothing in it, I think, great, loads of time to do stuff, I won't get anything done. And that's come true so many times. So I create pockets of time around when I'm most productive to do the things. And I think one of the hardest things has been, and Corey, I think you and I have talked about this before, has been coming out of that factory mindset of, I don't need to be at my desk from 9 until 6, because I've always been preconditioned to do that. I can work from 8 until midday, because that's when I'm at my best, and then the afternoon can be focused on some other stuff, and I'm just as productive. So that's freed me up mentally to do lots and lots of other stuff. And now I'm quite amazed by how much I can get done in a day, to be honest with you, and wonder wondered what I was doing before. And then, to come back to your first question in that set, Corey, around how fulfilled was I in professional life, I think I can say it now with hindsight. Certainly not as much as I am now. I think I'm a much more balanced, better person to be around at the moment. I think at the time, when I was in that corporate world, I thought I was absolutely the best person to be around. I took my role very seriously. I'd bring my work home with me, literally, and in my head as well. And I'd talk about things like they were, some of the really serious issues of the day, which of course they weren't. But I think it's enabled me to get a much broader perspective on things, and allowed me to be a much better father and husband, to be honest with you, which I think is probably what it's all about.
With spending more time with the family, picking the kids up, and also taking more time for your wife, which you haven't because she just got the 10%, because 90% were preoccupied with corporate. Did that also cause a shift in your or change in your values? The values which were important to you during corporate life, and then when you got this the beauty of life, yeah, the work life balance now, having that flexibility rather than 9 to 5 job at the desk, did that somehow impact your values? Did they change?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main thing was I saw the beauty in small things. And that can be, in opening the window on a nice evening and seeing that it's cooled down a bit and thinking, yeah, do you know what is really nice? I'm going to go and mow the grass now because I can. Or it can be, what, I'm reading with my son, which, I mean, he's 7 now and he can read on his own, but in a more formative age when he needed that guidance, I could think, this, what, this is really lovely. This is really magical to be able to do this and to help him with some of the words. And whereas previously it would have been just that chore that I did before I went down and fed my ravenous appetite, because I was so hungry after a day's work. You just want to kind of get it done, and I kind of hate myself for being that person that did that. So I think it's helped to just requalify those smaller things. And as I've learned as well, doing the school run and things like that, it's not a chore. Actually, it's a privilege to be able to do that. It's a privilege to be able to walk my kids to school. They won't want me to do it forever, and that time will pass. And I don't want to be that dad that just forgets that all that happens. So I think it's enabled that change to happen. And I don't get it right all the time, and my wife has ever has to sort of tell me quite frankly and starkly, don't take yourself too seriously, or don't put too much pressure on yourself, things like that. So she's very good at grounding me on that. But it certainly helped me to just appreciate the simple things in life, and quite frankly, just not to take stuff so seriously, because I used to take stuff so seriously and think myself really worthy and things like that. Quite frankly, I wasn't. I was probably a bit of an arse, to be honest with you. But things change. You get older. I think age has done it. Grey hair's coming on the temples now, so I think that's probably one thing that's coincided in all this as well. Age and wisdom.
You keep mentioning your wife. She must be a very wise person. And I also recently saw a post where you were literally promoting her. So how did she influence and support you throughout the time, and how has that also impacted your interacting with each other, since you're now a coach, flexible in setting up your time and schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I've said for a long time now, she makes me or she has made me a better person than the person that came into the marriage and into the relationship in on so many levels. And she's endlessly supportive. There's tough love at times. She tells me stuff I don't want to hear, and I fight back against that. But she's often right on things. But I think the biggest motivation, or certainly the one of the things I most admire, is how she's built her own business and how she straddles that line between being very successful in what she does, achieving a great balance with work and life, and being able to do something which I'm not very good at, which is compartmentalizing stuff and keeping things very separate. And in the way in which she's got a team that's underneath her, and the way in which she supports them, the way in which she empowers them, the way in which she considers them, the way in which she develops that business in a way that is right for where things are at is pretty inspiring, to be honest with you. And it's testament to the strength of that business that she's got that's enabled me to do this new journey that I'm doing. So she's quite a force to be reckoned with, I'd say. And I think one of the things that marks her out is her determination and tenacity to do things as well, which I have, but nowhere near to the same degree. And our daughter, funnily enough, has got exactly the same trait. She's incredibly tenacious at everything she does. And I think that's something which is I feed off that energy. And I think I probably need that. I need that influence in my life to propel me forward as well. So yeah, she is a big influence. I think we work very well together as a team. Obviously, I love her very much, but she is a source of great inspiration to me as well.
I like that you asked that question, Corey, because we can focus so much on just one aspect of our lives, the work or the clients or the business, and then and yet we're humans and we live in community and we live and everything we do impacts the people around us and vice versa. And I was just thinking back to it, the conversations and podcast conversations that we've had, and I was thinking, how many times have we had a guest talk about their partner or their wife or husband and in such a way? And I don't think that we have. So I really want to acknowledge that and honor how you've talked about your wife as being so integral to your journey, and also what you said is she's helped make you the person you are today, or a better person. And you use the same words that you use to describe what you do in your coaching world. So first of all, honoring you for including her, as because we work in partnerships, don't we? We're not siloed. And I feel like the silo model of doing business is one that we're trying to break out of, and people are breaking out of. And that's true for me, in the community that we have with Six Star Business, and also the businesses that tend to sort of come into my world nowadays. Yeah, so I just love that you said that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's quite. You're right. It is about doing things in partnership with people, and as with so many things, I think what I realise now to that point is working in a nice home office I've got here. Your world can very quickly become small if you let it, and it's important to break out of that, and it's important to take inspiration from elsewhere, meet new people, keep yourself on your toes. And I think that's something I'm determined to do, and keep myself lively to that as well.
That's great. I'd love to tap into your genius. You've talked about how you want people to be the best versions of themselves. Can you share with us a little bit about, I guess, how you go about figuring that out, or what's the journey you take someone on in a nutshell, or emotionally, or whatever it is? I'm really fascinated to hear this.
Yeah, well, I think that the first thing, as I've mentioned already, I like to do is just make sure that when the person enters into something they do with me, that they're very clear on something they want to change, or something they want to shift, or where they want to get to. And I think that's really key. That's not unique to me. I'm sure that I know that plenty of other people will do that as well. I think the reason I do that, as I've mentioned, is I think the best way to force the issue of facilitating a change or making that first step is to have some kind of structure in mind. One thing I've learned as well is human beings love structure. And even if that structure changes, if you've got kind of two tent poles, which you've got, one which is your current one which is your future one, you've got that whole bit between the two of them to play with. So that's the first thing I like to have. I'm a big believer in, having, if I talk about things in terms of sessions. So for example, in the way that I work with individuals, it's slightly different for businesses, but in the way that I work with individuals, I work with people in either slots of 3 or slots of 5 sessions. And the reason I do that is so that we've got a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's not quite as binary as that, but I think it's important to kind of chart that progress, and have that in the back of your mind when you're going through a change. And that's not to say that right by the end of session 3 or the end of session 5 the problem will be fixed or solved. Absolutely, that's not what I'm saying. But I think if you've got that structure to work within, it works well. I think as to how I go on that journey with people, probably the meatier bit to that question is obviously it's going to depend on the individual person. But the way in which I work with clients, I'm obviously very open and I absorb things that they say. So I'll listen to them. I'll listen to everything. I'll listen to what they say, the way they say it, how they move, and all of that, which even over Zoom, you can get a surprising amount from that as well. And I challenge people to really think about what they're saying, really, push their own boundaries, really try and challenge them to think in different ways. And it's quite, and obviously it depends on the person as to how you do that. But the bit that I really like is when you see someone really pushing themselves and really thinking about it, and you see kind of some changes in their eyes or some shifts in their body language and the way that they're sitting, where you think, actually, I think something's changed there or something's been uncovered. And I've had that ever since I trained, actually. And I've when you see that, when you see someone go, oh yeah, actually, yeah. And or occasionally, sometimes you'll be, I'll be coaching someone, and after I've finished a coaching arrangement with them, they will come back to one thing that they came out with, or that I had, included in my sum up at the end, which really resonated with them, which I would have felt was, quite incidental and innocuous to the conversation, but to them it was something that was really, really powerful and impactful and has stayed with them, and they've brought that through. So it's quite, I think, I'm still learning this as well. What I'm enjoying at the moment is going through and working with people in different ways. And for example, I'm a massive fan of using metaphors, both in everyday life and in coaching as well. It's a good way. That doesn't work for everyone. So I'm enjoying exploring different, more physical ways in which to use space, in which to use language, in which to use props and things like that to affect change and get people to do things in different ways. And it's quite interesting to see people's register of how they react to things, how they draw things out of themselves when they are, put in situations which are maybe a little bit uncomfortable for them, but actually it's probably that level of discomfort that draws out the things which need to change. So I don't know if I fully answered your question there, but it's kind of I think I enjoy the bit, I think, that is the real killer for me is seeing someone visibly realize something when you're in a session with them and be moved to make some kind of change as a result of it is gold dust for me.
That's great. And is that because you feel like you've helped be a catalyst for them to, move to that other limit? You've been instrumental in their growth.
I don't think it's about me. It's just about them having got that, whether it's me that's got them there or whoever is kind of neither here nor there for me. It's more that they have got something of value from it. They have got something which is able to take them on a new path, whichever way that is. They might be, for example, they might be frustrated because they can't, they've got a team of people that they cannot bring on side, or they can't do this or that with, but actually they suddenly realize there's probably something that they say or they do, I'm using this as an example, that they thought, do you know what? Yes, of course it is. And that then gets them to have that level of self-awareness to either make a change or do something in a slightly different way, something which is quite small, which can have a massive impact on both of them and others. I think something like that the level of satisfaction is just on them realizing that, rather than me being the agent of change on it.
Yeah. That's very selfless, isn't it? That's beautiful. Like you said before, that realization you had that people are the product.
It is, yeah. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
Something else that came to me as you were talking was a quote someone said to me this morning of Brené Brown's, that we need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's where the magic happens.
Yes, I think I couldn't agree more with that. I think one of the things, as I was I was out on a walking my dog this morning just before coming onto the podcast, and I was thinking about, some of the themes and things like that. And one of the things was actually bravery as a key ingredient, people being brave. And there's so many different layers to that, because you can be brave in making a career defining decision, for example. You can be brave in making a personal decision to uproot and move somewhere else for family or whatever reasons. But being brave is not the easiest thing to do. In fact, being uncomfortable is not the easiest thing to do. So I think, to probably preempt one of the questions, which I've certainly heard other guests answer, which is what makes six star, and what makes a six-star leader, what makes a six-star person, what makes a six-star business. I'd say bravery for me is absolutely that, in whatever guise it comes in. And I think I am always in admiration of people that have been brave, from, for example, professional sports people that have decided, I might be playing in a really successful team. I might not be playing very much, but actually I'm going to go to a smaller team because I want to do this and I want to do that. That's brave. Or it can be, my son, for example, who, he's a good sportsman, for example, but he gets cowed in bigger groups and he throws himself into stuff and he makes himself go and do things. And I think that's brave as well. So there's a massive range to it, and I think bravery is such an underrated commodity in business, in life. And almost, it's probably quite a decent rubric, or what do you call it, criteria for interviews and for taking people on in jobs. Are you brave? Have you got some of those intangible things within you that will stand you apart and go the extra mile? And I think it's all too easy to, as I found in my own corporate life, just to fall in line with the rhythm that you're working in. And being brave in whatever guise that comes to is, I think, rarely have people regretted it. At worst case, you'll have done something and you'll have learned something from it and you've been thankful for having done it. At best case, actually, you'll have made a change, or you've made a shift, or whatever you want to call it, and you've realized actually it wasn't as hard as you thought it was going to be. So, and I guess that probably encapsulates one of the reasons for my business. It is, are you brave? If you've got energy, if you've got desire, if you want to do something and it's kind of pent up and it's there, are you brave enough to go and do it? And I think that's I think what marks people out.
I have a memory that just came to me then from an old business coach who was actually a national kind of, I guess, marketing business, direct marketing guru back 12, 14 years ago. And he would say, fortune favors the bold. And he'd say it over again. And the fortune doesn't necessarily mean money, right? And bold means brave. So everything that you just said resonates really true. And I wonder if a question that we could ask ourselves is, where am I not being brave today, or right now, or in this moment? If we think about ourselves, if we have these quiet spaces of reflection time, ask ourselves that, because like what you said, it's about what's important, and where the magic happens is being brave. And I wonder how often we are not being brave.
Yeah, I'd say quite a lot. I think, the path of least resistance is always, you're only ever I could go and do that. Oh, and actually, no, I'll just go and scroll through Instagram. It's all too easy. It's all too, it's all too immediate. But I think one of the things we're certainly trying to encourage within our children is, my two children, is, to do stuff which is going out of your comfort zone. And I think it's not too. I learned that all too late. I was quite safe. I think I was brought up in quite a safe, quite traditional environment, and it wasn't until adult life that I changed stuff up and was able to do that. But having that, and having some level of determination to stick at things as well. I think having the bravery to do something and then in turn sticking at it, not completely blindly, but giving it a good chance, giving it a decent crack, having some stamina to do it. I think those are underrated qualities, and one certainly we can look to bring through. We live in the age of instant gratification on so many levels, and I think we create a lot of very decent people in the world, and certainly business people as well, if that was much more at the core of what was going on.
This notion of 6-star and bravery, I like it a lot. What would be, if you could give some advice or sort of gold nugget steps to someone listening to this podcast around how can they get over that inertia or their habits or, the things that are stopping them from being brave, what would you say?
I would say just start being brave in whatever guise that comes. That can be, you know, just, it can be something very small. It can be, right, actually, I'm really nervous about going to meet that new person. Just go and do it and step out and do it. It's never as bad as it seems. And one thing I've learned is, success breeds success. So if you get a small sense of success out of being brave, you'll want to be brave again, and then you do it again. So it's got this almost this flywheel of momentum which just builds and builds. And I think is key for me. And I say that from the point of view of my own experience of doing it, is actually the hardest thing, as with anything, is just to get started. If I apply it to something else, if I know I've got a big piece of work, if I've got a big PowerPoint deck to write, I write less of them now. I used to write loads of them, obviously, in my former role. But that used to be such a huge hurdle. And in the end, I just think, right, okay, I'm just going to write in the slide headers on each one. They're going to change. But that sense of, right, I've done something. And then all of a sudden, I was in and I was doing it. And 2 hours later, I'd have a 60% version done. So I think that same principle of just getting over that hurdle of doing it and being brave is key, because the momentum will build from there. So I think my advice would be, if there's something that makes you feel uncomfortable, you should probably do it, and you should probably do it, and it's never going to be as bad as you think what it's going to be. And actually, the impact of doing that is big, and you'll certainly thank yourself for doing it further down the line, I would say.
Wise words, wise words. Question back to coaching. As we coming back to bravery, most of the people are in their comfort zones. Most of the people wearing a facade because they don't show their fears, their desires they actually have. How are you able to break the ice with your coaches? Because you are tapping into those limitations which they build up in their minds. Yeah, what you call ceilings. How do you get the connection done that people are willingly opening up to you and reveal the fears they have? Because they have to do it, otherwise you're not able to help them. Yeah. So how do you bridge that gap?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one I'm learning about all the time at the moment, actually, because you're quite right, Corey. I mean, lots of the people I coach are new to me, as they probably should be as well. I think objectivity is key, and what I always do is make sure that they get to know me before we begin any coaching arrangement, and also I get to know them. And I think the way in which I talk about my own coaching would be, I'm quite warm, I'm quite relaxed in the way that I approach things. It's not stark, there's no sense of pressure or anything like that. And I want it to feel like any normal conversation. It's not like I'm the font of all knowledge and I'm sitting in my armchair like you see on films and things like that, or I'm not scratching my chin, I'm not being all earnest or anything like that. I'm just engaging in normal chat. And it just so happens there are various gear changes within that conversation. But I think you're right, Corey, in that you have to warm people up to that. And in coaching circles, we call it contracting, which is quite a clinical term, really, for just making sure that people are clear on what they're entering into and what they're going to get out of it. And I think I'll just be very clear and open around, this is, how do you like to work? What's your appetite for challenge? How do you respond to certain things, so that the person that you're talking to gets to know who you are. And I think one of the things that I really enjoy seeing as well is when you see someone, because it's quite interesting when you're looking out for it, and when you're trained to see someone's shoulders just kind of relax a bit on screen or face to face, where you think actually they're much more relaxed and reassured and warmed up for the conversation now. If they've been heard, if they have the opportunity to ask their own questions and feel like they've got a connection with you. And I think, connection is so important, because I think if I don't have a connection with someone, I think we have to, well, put it this way, there needs to be a connection for a coaching arrangement to work. If you don't have it, then there's no point, because you've got to trust with the person that you're talking to, because otherwise you're not going to be able to get them to be as honest as possible. So I don't know exactly how I do it. I just try. I'll be honest with you. I just try and be myself, and I just try and talk to them as I would anyone else in any other walk of life, and almost, right, this is me. I'm bringing myself to the party here. I'm keen to hear about you and how you are. Are we going to work well together? Can we do that? And I think 9 times out of 10, I think absolutely there is, because you find some common ground, and you find a way to work together. But I think that's absolutely key to get, because you can't just launch into it. Otherwise, it can be a very functional, very cold conversation. And I think, A, that's not me, and B, it's certainly not in service of clients either.
Well, I would say that's then your calling, being a coach. Yeah, wonderful.
Well,
Happy for
I
you.
hope so. All the chips are on it now.
Yeah.
So
Happy for you and for the people you're able to help to break through. Yeah, wonderful.
thank you very much.
Steve, do you have any last tidbits or a piece of advice for our listeners to take away?
I think nothing I haven't already covered. I think it would be, if there's something at the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh, yeah, that's not quite right, or I want to change that, or yes, there's something there which tells you need to make some kind of change, or you need to work something through. Do it with whoever it is, whether it's with a partner, whether it is with a coach, whether it is with a mentor, whoever it might be. Find someone, talk it through. A problem or a situation can be just kicked about a bit, and it can help to clarify it. Don't keep it to yourself. That's what I would say. Do that, because it's helped me on a number of occasions. And yeah, and if you feel like there's something that needs to change, chances are it needs to change, and your gut feel doesn't lie. So trust in your gut, trust in your instinct would be my I guess my parting shot. And also, just to say to both of you, it's been a pleasure to come on this morning and talk to you both and answer your questions. I'm surprisingly warmed up for 7:30 in the morning, to be honest with you. So that's good. Nothing that coffee can't fix. But thank you to both of you for having me on. It's been really, really great to talk to you and to talk through elements of my story.
More than welcome.
Yeah, it's been great, Steve. Thank you for sharing your journey. I think a lot of people can relate to, the corporate life, the transition, and I just love how you've tapped into your genius and what you're doing. There's so many things to take from that. I just want to thank you for your time this morning and for being so bright and bubbly at 7:30 in the morning. It's been great.
No problem. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.